Welcome back to the Strawberry Corner NUFC Podcast. Bournemouth 1, Newcastle 1. Eddie Guerrero's Mags nicking a point on the road. We lie, we cheat, we steal. Some love to say it, some don't. We're undercooked and unbeaten though. Bring on Forest and Spurs. Today, we're joined by Nick Pope's kicking coach, Olly Scholes. How are you doing?
Hi, very good, thanks. Teaching them those shin rollers.
How was the trip, mate? How was the weekend?
Oh, it was a really good one. Like, it was, with them only having like 1,400 tickets, I think it was in total. It was like, obviously the points were quite high, so it was like a really old school weekend. Really enjoyed it. Like, it was like one of Keith Barrett's tour and travel specials. It was really good. I saw loads of old faces, loads of the old songs getting brought out as well. Like, David Kelly scored a hat-trick on the Telly. Andy Cole. Robert Lee scored a goal on ITV, that sort of stuff. It was just all the old classics. It was a really good weekend. Really enjoyed it. Long journey down my dog's kick.
It looked like a good weekend. The camera was panning around, and it was one of those where the sun's bleaching down on the stand, isn't it? How did you manage with the sun belting on your face?
Well, you know me, like I'm like tall, dark, and handsome, so the tan was ideal for me. Like, but no, it was you've probably seen me picture on the Instagram, and it was my eyes were a bit squinty. Like, it was quite an experience. It was great though, loved it. Pleased I got home last night though. I was just absolutely knackered. Been basically driving for 2 days.
What a quick one on the reaction with Trippier at the end, mate. What was it? Was it a support for him, or was it a goodbye? What was your sense?
Well, I think it was a bit of both, really. I think it was, we'd all seen the Daily Mail. You can bleep that out. In their headlines about the footballer, and we all sort of drew comparisons, and we all know it's Trippier that they're getting at, isn't it? So I think it was a show of support, but also like a goodbye just in case. But I mean, he's potentially still going to be there for the Forest game, isn't he? So maybe he's not quite a goodbye yet. But we'll see. Hopefully we can hang on to him though, because I think, we might talk about this later on as well, I'm sure, but not getting a Tino at all. He's an excellent footballer. He's a great right back, but I think what we saw yesterday was the difference between a really good right back with bags of potential, who's going to be a great player for the next 10 years, and like a world-class right back in Kieran Trippier. I think he made a massive difference when he came on, and hopefully we're gonna be able to do something to keep him there, but I don't know, it doesn't look like very optimistic, does it?
No, we'll get to that. And obviously very, very thankful for your 3 Insta stories. One duplicate though. Did you say you did one twice, which was fine. It was a double got, need, one of those, isn't it?
I had a bit of a like, there was no signal in the ground, so I was sort of like trying to post it, and it when I looked at them back again, it hadn't posted, so posted it again, but obviously it already posted, hadn't it? So
it's all right, mate. It's all content. Double. You're just duplicating content. It's fine. We got a great reaction to it. Everyone loved the picture of you in the bin. Gets you right in the fields, that one. And also joining us on the podcast today, we've got Jermaine Jenas' PR consultant, Dean Harrison. How are you going?
I am fine. Thanks for taking half an hour to even let everybody know that I'm here. I'm good.
Dean, I was going to ask, have you ever sent a bang out of order text message before? But to be honest, I've been on the receiving end of a 4-pager from you, and those are bang out of order. Just a little joke there for the other lads who've received a text from Dean before. Right then, gents, we seem to be right in amongst the carnage at the start of the season. I hope that we're not using up all of our luck. Dean, I'll come to you first, since we brought you in pretty late. First 15 minutes of the game, what are you thinking?
First 15, it was a game of pinball, I thought. What was coming through on the commentary was that we had the better start of the two teams, but I actually didn't think either team had settled down at all. And I was curious to see how the game would go and if we were going to settle down. And of course, we didn't really until into the second half. And just remember thinking as Bournemouth got on top of her a little bit, I thought this game's going to get away from her. That was the initial thoughts and feelings kind of after those first 15 minutes or so. Just couldn't put my finger on what it was. I kind of reflected on it after the game. And don't think it's really about fitness, actually. It's an easy one to throw that out after pre-season, but we were just poor on the ball. First touches, sloppy. Pass selection was sloppy. Putting passes into players that were under pressure. But you can also give a lot of credit to Bournemouth because they really rushed and pressurised, and I think some of the players struggled under that pressure. So nervous and really a little bit apprehensive to see where the rest of the game went. That was kind of how I felt after those first 15 or so, Stu.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something I haven't seen really from the coverage post matches is just how good Bournemouth seem to be as a team. I think we're quite often quick to criticise Newcastle when they don't bring the goods, but Bournemouth definitely played their part yesterday. Olly, obviously the away end would have been bouncing, like you mentioned, just there, all the old songs out. What was the tone of the crowd when kind of everyone was realising we were struggling a little bit?
There was some frustration. There was lots of encouragement, I think, as well. But there was some frustration, sort of aimed at the wrong people, maybe at times. But it was, frustration was definitely there. But I think on the whole, it seemed to be quite an encouraging crowd. So,
yeah. And if Isak scores that early effort, do you think the game plays out a little bit different? Do we grow in confidence, Olly?
I think it's what happens, isn't it? It's football. It's all about confidence a lot of the time. The crowd were definitely behind them, but I think if that goal goes in, or that effort goes in, then it maybe makes the game very different. It lifts our spirits. It sort of tones them down a little bit as well, and what they were doing, their tails go down, and maybe we're sort of get more of a stranglehold on the game, but it just didn't happen, did it? So, and I think it was probably pretty apt that it didn't go in because it was just the story of the day, really.
Yeah, and Dean, after those initial 15 minutes, where it was pinball and perhaps Newcastle were just shading the better of the player. Bournemouth seemed to step up and dominate the rest of the half, as you mentioned, and you could see that goal coming a mile off, couldn't you? On 37.
You could. One of the things that I was trying to figure out watching the game was shape. I was a little bit lost of how we were set up and why we were set up in the way that we did. And it looked like we sort of wanted to set up as a bit of a 4-4-2 almost in defence. And then whenever we did get the ball, we could never transition into that sort of 4-3-3. That's how it came across on the television. Whether it was how we set up or how the players were putting into practice what Eddie Howe was asking for, I don't know. But look, Bournemouth were deserving of that, and I think the 15 minutes after the first 15, where, as you say, we probably edged it a little bit, albeit it wasn't great. Bournemouth did settle down, and you could see they were growing in confidence, and I felt like that goal was coming. So it didn't come as a surprise, and in truth, we couldn't hear the halftime whistle any sooner. Sooner the better.
Yeah, and just to come back to you, Dean, obviously a little bit of a fault from Joelinton for the goal. There was kind of early signs here that his performance wasn't going to be up to scratch on the day, kind of losing it, dwelling a little bit long on the ball. If we just pick apart the goal a little bit, there's a few little just lapses in concentration. I'd even pick Tino at the back post out a little bit sleeping.
Yeah, and that was picked out in the commentary as well. I think, look, for me, if I think of the little moment with Joelinton to begin with, we won last week against Southampton, and maybe this stuff wasn't discussed enough, but I certainly thought in the first part of that game also we were sloppy on the ball. I've touched on it earlier here as well. Sloppy on the ball, and just didn't look mentally switched on, didn't look to be up to the pace of a Premier League game. That was how I felt for some of the individuals. So sloppy in possession, and then with Tino, it's just that lapse in concentration, and it takes that split second But again, to be honest, we can pick what we're doing to pieces, but the truth is it was no more than Bournemouth deserved. But yeah, I think for me, Stuart, it's not about the quality as such. It's just I don't think we're necessarily up to speed mentally with, and I say pace, and I don't mean it in a fitness way, but I don't feel like we're completely up to speed with the sort of the mental aspect and the pace of Premier League fixtures. That's how it's come across to me, just as I say, because we've seen it all too many times where those touches are sloppy, pass selection poor, just putting ourselves under pressure. And look, if that becomes a theme, then ultimately you end up getting bitten in the backside.
So sometimes, it just boils down to losing those individual battles, doesn't it? And Semenyo was a particular irritant, was giving Lloyd Kelly a bit of a runaround. It was a tough afternoon for him, Olly.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was obviously Lewis Hall started the Southampton game, didn't he? And I think most of us thought that was going to continue. But when I saw the starting lineup, I thought maybe it was going to be a three at the back situation, and Kelly was going to be sort of left of the three centre halves. But it transpired he was more of a left back, wasn't he? And I don't know, it's difficult when you've got a new player coming into the side and he's not used to how things are going, how we're playing, stuff like that, and then he's put quite early on out of position. It was quite a difficult afternoon for him, but I sort of maybe don't necessarily blame him too much for it. The obvious thing to do might have been to put Dan Burn left back and Kelly in the middle. But then, without that senior centre half in the middle, it might have been even more of a struggle. So it's just one of those things. I think he's not had the best of games, but it's a learning curve for him.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I think I kind of expected some changes at half time, but then I reflected that how Never does that. We come out and it was much of the same. It was, albeit maybe it's a slight improvement. But in truth, Dean, it wasn't until Trippier and Barnes were introduced on 58 that there was a spark and were able to get a foothold again, yeah?
Yeah, and look, I felt the same as you, but in truth, again, it's one of those where what you would like to see and what you think is going to happen can be two different things. And I was kind of crying out, really watching the game for some changes at half time, and I was disappointed with our first half performance, so just a natural feeling that. But look, Eddie, doing what you would expect really as a manager or a head coach, you want to give those players an opportunity to try and fix things and put it right. And as you say, maybe a small improvement, but not enough to see we really get back into the game. And those changes that came at a good time. I mean, just before 60, so still half an hour left to play. That's enough time for them to get a foothold into the game. And I was really pleased with how quickly actually they made a difference. I think Trippier, ironically, being a right back, the difference that he made was calm, experienced, cool under pressure, wants the ball. One of those players that says, give us the ball. He doesn't shy away from those difficult moments. He's positioning, nice, high and wide. Just got with playing in the way that you would expect from us. And I mentioned this in the group chat, but a bit of a shame that he's a right back, because we could have done with a bit of that in the middle of the field also.
Right.
But then also for me, just Harvey Barnes, I think he'll be chomping at the bit. He'll feel like there's a bit of a point to prove. I still, in similar, and I was going to ask this when we talk about Lewis Hall there, and we can bring this up with Harvey Barnes also. I'm not certain that Eddie Howe fully trusts them. So Harvey Barnes has got to keep chipping away, and I was really pleased anyway, because I've been calling to see Barnes and Gordon in the team together, and was really pleased that actually that it was those two that connected and to get the goal. So pleasing, yeah, but just look, I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the Spurs fixture, and whether, and if Trippier stays, you would expect him now, I think, to get a starting berth. I think that's probably a bit more of a given for me. I'm still not sure whether Eddie Howe will start with Barnes and Gordon. Who knows what will happen in the Forest fixture, because I'm sure he'll use some other players that haven't had game time. But certainly for this Spurs fixture, I'm really interested to see how he goes about that.
Yeah, Ollie, just to bring you in on Trippier, just a timely reminder of what he actually brings to this team, right?
Aye, totally. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because it seems like it's not football reasons why he wants to go. It seems very much like he'll want to play every game as well, but he also seems to want to go back home and maybe have a fresh start. So it's a difficult one, but I think he's vital to the intensity that we play sometimes. You know how we were so much more intense in the second half when he came on. He presses, he makes those runs, he goes quite high as well. I think, compare that to Livramento, who he's just getting started in his career and stuff, and I love him. I'm excited to see how he turns out, but I think his runs tend to be a bit more mazy. He tends to get his head down, and Trippier's a lot more sort of calculated with his runs at the minute. I mean, Livramento's going to be excellent, don't get us wrong. But I think at the minute, I feel like we need to keep hold of Trippier, even if it's for 6 months until, get through the first half of the season and still have him. And then I'm not saying Livramento shouldn't be playing at all, but I think we need Trippier's intensity and we need his leadership as well.
Yeah, definitely that last word there, leadership, he definitely showed that in abundance, didn't he?
Apart from when he had his head in his hands on the bench, but
that only the cameras picked up on. And then Hall and Willock were introduced on 70. And again, I feel like they just added a little bit of impetus. For me, Ollie, Hall showed why he should start. He's energetic, forward thinking. He's always playing the ball forward, looking for gaps, looking for space. And yeah, you can just see the difference that he makes in the team when he comes on, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, he had a poor start against Southampton, didn't he? And he made a few little errors, but he's trying to keep the ball, isn't he? Rather than just looking long like Croft did a lot yesterday. Against Southampton, he was sort of trying to keep the ball, keep possession. And it ended up sort of costing us a couple of Southampton had a couple of chances from his mistakes, but he'll learn, he'll grow, he'll get better. But he's very similar to Trippier on the left. In terms of what he wants to do, he's dynamic. He guns past people, he looks for the passes, and it's good to see him making such an impact yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you see those players adding that kind of that energy, it kind of just focuses the strategy on closing down the opposition, doesn't it? And just gets you higher up the field. That's ultimately what it does. We were camped so far deep in the first half, and then the start of the second. Made a massive difference. The Gordon goal on 76, good work from Barnes down the left. What I liked is he picks his opportunity to cross the ball. He didn't cross it, willy-nilly. Commits to the defender, finds the opportunity to cross the ball, which is perfect. That's great winger play. And for me, the position Gordon takes up is exactly why he should be playing right wing, Dean.
Yeah, I thought nail on the head there, Stu. Really nice, selected ball in. Wasn't just let's just lob it in and see what happens. And Gordon, right place, right time. I had a bit of a chuckle at myself watching the game because he bowled off after he put the ball in the back of the net and went kind of towards the corner to celebrate. And then I think he realised there was nobody around him. Looked over his shoulder and he's thinking, might be offside or whatever. He was nowhere near offside. But it was one of them that the players weren't really interested in going into the corner and celebrating. They wanted to get back and have another go at it, which was pleasing to see. But look, Stu, for me, it's been screaming out, whilst we've spent all summer talking about we're bringing in a right forward. Until that happens, they, for me, are the two players that should be in the team with Isak up front. I think as far as Premier League team goes across the front three, that's right up there with some of the most exciting threes in the league. So let's just not be precious about it. I mean, let's just have a go and put them in. But I'm not certain that Eddie Howe's going to do that on a regular, but I don't know. How do you think that was received yesterday, Ollie, with the crowd when they saw that change was made? Was it, I suppose, one of excitement and people just having a bit more belief there that we've got another threat in the team?
Overall, it was quite positive. I think there's one or two sceptics who said Gordon should have gone off. I heard, there's this idea, I think, at the minute, probably driven by social media, that Gordon's head's in the wrong place. He's gone to he wants to go to Liverpool and his head's been turned. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I think there was a couple of groans in the crowd about it should have been Gordon that went off when Bonds came on. But I think that was quite an exciting change, and I think most of the crowd were fully behind that. I think it's what a lot of people have been asking for, isn't it? Really, as well, particularly us, I think. So yeah, I think it was excitement mainly with a couple of groans.
Obviously, a very important goal for Gordon, and hopefully this is the turning point for him, Olly, and he can kick on now and show the form that he did last season. Yeah,
I hope so. Yeah, I think we saw yesterday and we saw last week, didn't we? We talked about this idea that he just needs a goal to get himself going, but hopefully that is it. I mean, Dean's right. He sort of ran over, and I think the players were more interested in getting back over and getting on with it and trying to get a second, but which inevitably didn't happen. But it was just good to see him coming over to the crowd, and I think that's been a thing, hasn't it? There's been this disconnect the last little while. Maybe against Southampton, people felt there was a bit of a disconnect between Gordon and the fans, and it was good to see that coming back. I think the goal will lift his confidence, lift his spirits, hopefully as well. I think the word I would use to describe how I feel about Gordon at the minute is jaded. He's had a very long summer again. And I think it must be really frustrating, the excitement of being called up for England for the Euros, and the excitement of I'm going to get my opportunity on the biggest stage, I'm going to play for my country, etc. And then having to put all those hours into training, and we know how meticulous he is, Gordon, with his training and his attitude to winning and things like that. And then for him to get 3 minutes, he must have come back really down. And I talked last week as well about this idea that he was told he was going to Liverpool, really. To all intents and purposes, and it didn't happen. And I think jaded's the word, really. His goal will hopefully lift him, and it'll hopefully sort of give him a bit more confidence. He knows he's got the crowd behind him, and yeah, let's hope he's a bit more intense, I suppose, in the next few games.
Yeah, he looks like he's got the world on his shoulders, doesn't he? He doesn't seem to be playing with freedom like he was last season.
Nah.
I think it's a great point about England, right? You've had the season of your life, you've went away, you expect to make a mark, you play 5 minutes, and you've made an opportunity in that game as well against, there was a Slovakia, and then you don't see another minute. Frustrating. I guess for Gordon, what's good is that Lee Carsley's a Gordon advocate, isn't he? He was his number one man for under 21, so hopefully Lee Carsley just needs to give him a call and say, look, you're in my plans, give him something to work towards, and yeah, I think he'll turn the corner now. I think that's what he needs, but whether that's on the left or the right, remains to be seen. I think the rest of the game, so from 76 when we scored, the rest of the game becomes a bit of it's very open, isn't it? It's a bit of a basketball game, back and forwards. Newcastle probably share it again and have the an opportunity with Dan Burn. Bournemouth also have opportunities as well. I feel like Dan Burn could have done better with that header. It was kind of straight back at the keeper. Either side of it would have been a goal. So it kind of takes us straight up to the talking points, lads. Right. So let's deal with this in first one. Joelinton with the clothesline on Neto. Olly, dog arts, or Dean? Is it embarrassing? Is it reaching? Is it showing your arse a little bit?
The Dan Burn one I could kind of live with, because I had a chuckle at it because it was funny. The Joelinton one was like, right, we've done it once, we've done it again. But I mean, that was more out of the WWF, it was a clothesline. And I don't think it was a red card. I know that was mentioned on the coverage. I think it was just, look, I can deal with one. 2 was a bit much. And as I've said, Olly, they called it dark arts because you get away with little tricks and whatnot, but that wasn't anything to do with dark arts for me. That was just outright cheating. And I think it's that balance of, responding maybe to Eddie Howe's comments last week about having a little bit more of that nastiness in with, which I I love to see that. But I also don't want to be giving away silly yellow cards every week, because we've saw that actually we collect a fair few of them, and then that can bite we're in the backside as well. And I just think, again, put it into context, Stu, it was just a bit desperate, and I think it was like a bit of a final piece of a frustrating day, really, for me, where I was thinking, look, really, we're playing against Bournemouth. I know at home, and look, they played well, and they're not a bad side at all, which I mentioned in the preview. But it's just not a good look. I mean, if we're serious about wanting to get into European places this season, and some are talking about Champions League places, we've got to be better than that. I just don't think it was a good look. But to give balance to this, if I was playing in a game on a Sunday morning and we were chasing the game, or we were protecting the lead, and I was up for a corner and we were in danger of conceding one, would I do the same thing? Absolutely. But I'm talking about Sunday morning football, like not a team that's trying to get into the European places. So it was just it topped off a day of frustration for me, and I just didn't think it was a good look.
Olly, you didn't close that in hard enough, no?
No, I want to see more of that. Me, I think they have, like you said in the before we started the pod. I think they've almost taken Eddie Howe a little bit too literally with his talking about seeing a little bit more of that this season that we didn't have last season. Maybe there's a couple of times I can remember last season losing games or drawing games where we've not brought someone down. I think Longstaff and Murphy are the two that stick out. I can't remember which games they were, but I remember a player running from the halfway line thinking, just bring him down. We've got like a minute left for 1-0 up, or a goal up anyway. Just bring him down, and we've sort of we've stood off them, or we've tried to get back at them fairly, and then we've conceded twice, I think it was last season. So for me, I get it. I know what Dean's saying, absolutely, and it is cheating, of course it is. But especially Joelinton's, with it being so late on in the game, it stopped the break, didn't it? It stopped Bournemouth getting on the attack, and I think more of that, please. I'm not comparing Joelinton and Dan Burn to Roy Keane, but sacrificed himself really against Juventus, didn't he, for the Champions League final that year, to make sure Man U got through. And I think that's what we need to see a little bit more of at times. Maybe he's not quite as blatant, but
I do agree with Dean though. That it definitely wasn't a red card though. I've seen that on socials and people saying that it was dangerous play and stuff. And you do run the risk, right? Because nowadays that could be seen as dangerous play. The referee could have sent him off and could have been out without Joelinton for 3 games, I suppose. But anyways, we've getting away with that one.
Red card for the keeper for running into him for me.
Aye, absolutely, and for having the name Neto as well, get him off. The second one, obviously the disallowed goal for Bournemouth, seems to have been there's a split here, but by the letter of the law, it is handball from what kind of it's been sent out by the referees and things. Any objections? Ollie, first, is that do you agree that that's handball?
Of course I do.
Dean, would you'd be furious though, right, if that was Newcastle and that was disallowed?
100%. But that's football, isn't it?
That is football. That is football, mate.
Can I ask you, for most things, I would say absolutely, especially when it's a bit of a coin flip. But do you know, when it went in, my first reaction is probably what everybody's was, which was, shit, conceded, that's the game gone. Disappointment. Didn't pick up anything untoward at all. But VAR's then intervened, and it's done its job. It's there for exactly that. It picked up something that nobody else did. And if you look at the slow-mo that they played countless times, the referee physically could not see that, because you can see him, and he's on the edge of the box, and he's kind of on an angle behind the players. So there's no chance he can see what's happened. He'll just assume that it came off his head. And the chances are the lino's probably not seen it either, because of the players in the middle of the box there. So VAR's done its job. And genuinely, when it was played, as soon as I saw it, I went, that's handball. And the thing that's been coming out is this thing about the armpit and that, but he's had his arm raised a little bit. It's over the top of Dan Burn, or is it Dan Burn, I think? But it's like they were talking about the shoulder, and I was giggling on the telly because they kept holding like the upper arm, talking about the shoulder, but it hit the badge on the upper arm, and you just can't score like that. So honestly, as soon as I saw it, even though my first reaction was disappointment, as soon as I saw it and it was getting played through and it was getting slow-mo, I was dead relaxed. I was like, that's handball. And to be honest, if it didn't go in our way, I would have felt aggrieved, because I would have felt like we were robbed a little bit. So I think, look, VAR did its job in that situation. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Olly, Eddie Howe seems to think that the draw was a fair result, although conceding that Bournemouth might have thought differently. What do you think overall? The draw fair, or do you think Bournemouth have been a bit unlucky there?
I think, if I'm being 100% honest, I think Bournemouth would probably feel aggrieved that they haven't won that game. I think, they were the better side for more of the game than we were. Yes, we got back on top of it, and we probably had the greater chances really in the last 20 minutes. Bruno hit the bar. We've had 2 headers saved by the keeper. They've also had some chances as well, and I think they can probably feel quite aggrieved. And obviously Iraola doesn't he? Which led to him getting sent off. But I just think I was pleased with the result. I would have taken a point before the game. But yeah, I think Bournemouth can probably feel quite aggrieved by it. But I'm not a Bournemouth fan, so I'm not really bothered.
Dean, I think you were the one that correctly predicted the score 1-1. Just to kind of pick out some performances, mate, without being too critical, right? But a bit cause for concern. I'm thinking more like Pope's kicking, something that we see time and time again. It doesn't seem to be any development there. Do you see that being a real issue for us this season? Teams can play on that.
Possibly. I think, look, the frustrating thing for me with Nick Pope in that sense, because I really like him in all other areas, actually it's like maybe 70% of the time it's okay, but he's always got a few of them in. And there was once where got the ball, went to kick it to the right-hand side, went straight out, pretty low kick it was, and I lost me head, and it's those simple things that then put pressure on. Ultimately what we did in that situation is we gave possession to the opposition high up the pitch. Just could be completely avoided. And I think for me, it's about, if it's not something we're comfortable doing, do we need to make better choices in those situations and just get the ball in other areas where you'll see it from a goal kick, for example. We'll often put it high to the left and we'll look at getting Joelinton under the ball, bring it down and we're playing from higher up the pitch. So we don't always have to look pretty, look fancy. And I think one of the other things, Stu, just to touch on this, because we've talked about the kicking, is I just felt like in the first half in particular, we were trying to play through Bournemouth and it just didn't work. We just couldn't do it. Weren't good on the ball, weren't good on the first touch, weren't good under pressure. So it was screaming out forward just to be more direct, get the ball down the flanks, get Murphy, who I thought was poor, onto the ball a bit more, get going onto the ball, high and wide, take that approach and be a bit more direct. And I just think maybe yesterday was one of those days where when you're at a small, tight ground, the opposition are up for it, the crowd are behind them. Let's not put more pressure on by trying to be intricate on the way out, and let's actually just get further up the field. Not attractive, not pretty, but maybe a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. Olly, coming at you for some positives, mate. We're unbeaten so far this season. I feel like we're playing in first gear still. Plenty to work on. If this is us now, kind of just needing to get August out of the way to build some match fitness, do you see some green shoots of encouragement? Kind of, the fixture list is kind. Do you feel like this is just running up to, a bit of match fitness, basically what it is?
Definitely, I think there's lots of positives. I mean, Joe Willock's cameo yesterday was really positive for me. I loved seeing him beating that man down on the left, and driving at the other team. So I think that was a huge positive. Not seeing him at all last season really was a big struggle for us. Like lots of positives. The substitutions that Howe made, the timing that he made them at as well, really important. I think that was a positive. Harvey Barnes, who at the minute isn't a regular starter, but I think has the potential to be. He's a bit of a game changer, and I think I was saying to me son on the way home yesterday. I think if Harvey Barnes had been signed from Villarreal or Sevilla or something like that, and his name was Harvey Barnesio or something, I think he'd be a lot more, a lot higher rated than he is. I think he's sort of underrated in what he can do. You talked about. You get wingers who just whip the ball in and sometimes there'll be goals, sometimes there'll be chances, sometimes there won't. He really thought about that cross. He worked it. He waited for Gordon's run. He took a little time to settle on the ball and stuff as well. So I think he's going to be a big player this season. Lewis Hall's cameo as well. I think he was excellent. So many positives,
Olly, I think you've just given us an idea for a Strawberry Corner podcast T-shirt, mate. So Harvey Barnesio is like the fast show version of Giorgio, yeah? Is that what we're going to do?
Spot on.
Here we are. First bit of merch. We'll get that knocked up. Spot on. Dean, Sandro Tonali, obviously we're expecting him back for Forest midweek. Potential of him playing against Spurs, depending on, if his... I think it's probably one out of the two, right? So you're probably not going to play both of them. But that's encouragement, isn't it? So we know what's going to be coming back into the team, the attributes that he's got, the skill set that he's got, and what he's going to offer the team, yeah? Which is what we need, is, looking after the ball a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we'll see him start in the Forest game, I think. We've seen the footage and whatnot, haven't we, of him working hard at pre-season, and his day one is that Forest fixture, so he's been working towards this. I think he's been involved a little bit behind closed doors as well. So, look, start that game. I think you're probably right. It'll not be the two. It'll be one of the two, and we might see him for 30, 20 minutes maybe in the Spurs fixture. So the attributes and the qualities that he'll bring, if we're looking at the game yesterday, those are very much what we were crying out for and need. I think for me, the only, to give balance to this, worry is expecting a little bit too much too soon from him. We'll have to remember that he's missed really all of last season. And in terms of gelling with the team, I'm sure he's done that again away at the training ground, and he's learned English, and I'm sure he's got to grips with the group and whatnot. But there's still nothing that can replicate being out there in front of 52,000 people and getting in amongst it in a top tier fixture. I know the Forest game's a League Cup fixture, of course, but come these big fixtures, I think we just need to be patient with him as well. And if it isn't going quite right straight off the bat, just like I say, need to be patient and supportive and allow that time for him to get fully up to speed. Similar as you said about the first couple of games of the season, still in gear one, really. But I'm excited, albeit still. In the old adage of it is a bit of a new signing. I think he'll give a lift to everybody. What I'd love to see is just that first appearance against Forest go really well. Just give him the confidence, give a little bit of confidence, momentum, bit of a buzz about his comeback. And I think, again, just reflecting on the first couple of games of the season, I still think we're only a signing or two away from just giving the whole group a lift as well. And the kind of chat from supporters at the moment. It's one of like, well, we're being patient, we're a bit frustrated with the lack of business and so on and so on. But it takes one new decent player to come in for that to just completely flip and for the talk to be one of excitement again. So hopefully this week, with a good result and performance against Forest, some good work in the transfer window, we'll go into that Spurs fixture cooking on gas and really ready to go at them. Like,
yeah, a busy week ahead for Newcastle, I would say. Another positive, Ollie, to come back to you. We got beat off Bournemouth last season. If this season's about putting the rights wrongs, then we're on track, right?
Yeah, that's it. Positive results compared to last season's is what you want, really, isn't it? Drawing games that we would have lost last season. I think I said it about Southampton. I think that's a game that we would have lost last season. Away to Bournemouth. Well, we did lose it last season, but I mean, from the position that we were in last season, I think it's much more positive performance in terms of we have ground out that point instead of throwing it away. And I think part of that, going back to what I was saying before about Joelinton's clothesline, was that kind of stuff. If that's something that we didn't do enough of last season, and I think that turns a game from a point into none sometimes. So, I'm sort of tongue in cheek a little bit about how pleased I was with it and stuff. Obviously, you don't want to say that, but but if it happens and it's saved points or whatever, then I'm sort of in favour of it in that moment, really. Just one thing I did want to mention about their goal yesterday was, I felt it was, there was a foul on Bruno in the build up to it. The ball goes to Longstaff, who plays a sort of threaded ball through two attackers who are sort of putting a bit of pressure on him. Joelinton's got his back to goal. He's got someone coming towards him as well, closing him down. Don't get us wrong. I'm not sort of taking any blame away from Joelinton. It was a terrible bit of play, and it was sloppy. It was loose, but he hasn't settled on the ball. He's tried to turn, and he's been dispossessed, and they went and scored. And for me, I think the referee acknowledged it was a free kick. He played the advantage, and I didn't see any advantage there at all. So it might come across as bitter and biased and what have you, but actually, I think the reality is I felt a bit aggrieved at the time about that not being a free kick to us. It's a little bit picky, but it was a foul, and we ended up not having really much of an advantage on that. So, yeah, sloppy from Joelinton, but I think we could have been a little bit more lucky there if the referee had decided else, like the other way around.
Yeah. Picked that up in the group chat as well. I think advantage is just not even a thing anymore. And it frustrates me because I feel like there are two sort of scenarios that I find baffling. One is sometimes there's a 50-50, but the team have got the ball anyways and they're away, and the referee will give it the old arm of our advantage because that's an easy out rather than just making a difficult decision, I suppose. The other one for me is advantage is just over so quickly.
Yeah.
Where maybe 2-3 seconds have went past and we've made 5 or 10 yards. But actually, has anything come of it? Then we've lost the ball, bang. Then we're transitioning, we're running backwards. The opposition have got under pressure. That's not advantage.
Aye, I'd rather have a free kick on it.
We've made 5-10 yards or whatever. And I'm not just talking about this scenario, but we see this in the game all of the time, Ollie, and it's been like this for a while, but yeah, advantage isn't even a thing now. And it's annoying because in that situation, what happens is the defensive team or the team without the ball end up actually getting the advantage.
Aye.
Because if that's the case, like if a team's got advantage, I'll just track you for 5 yards and then I'll just go through you and get the ball.
Aye. And
then you've lost the ball. It just doesn't make sense to us, and it is something that actually I would like to see change in the game. But I suppose I just wanted to add that in. I wholeheartedly agree about that, but don't want to go down a rabbit hole of advantage because I think there's a long list of things that we'd probably want to change with the game.
Aye, there's a lot of intricacies. You could do a whole podcast on that, couldn't you? Innit? I mean, I've had an argument with a bloke in a non-league game about advantage. It was a North Shields game actually. North Shields had the ball. There was a foul. The player was in the middle of a pass up the line to the winger. The foul came. He stumbled, and and it took a couple of seconds for him to regain his balance and play the ball up the line. Referee played advantage in the meantime, and then the linesman gave offside because the lad had taken a couple of seconds to get himself into an offside position. And I shouted, "Where's the advantage there?" And the bloke said, "You cannot have advantage with an offside decision. He's offside." But what I was saying was the advantage, the missed advantage was that he wasn't offside when the player was about to play the ball off the line. So there's so many little intricacies like that really frustrate us and really sort of wind us up. And I think you're right. I think things do need to change in that respect.
Just before we move on to kind of the away game at Forest in the Carabao Cup, just want to mention about Isak's performance. I think he's looking quite sharp so far at the start of the season, Ollie. He's looking quite tasty on the ball. He's dropped his shoulders and give the Forest defenders quite a little bit of a run around. I think with some better service, we could be a couple of goals deep so far.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's just a little bit more sharpness and a little bit more. Well, a goal would be nice, wouldn't it, for his confidence and just sort of getting his shooting boots back on and stuff. I think he's not far away from being. I think he's been our best player this season.
Yeah, I would agree.
So far, anyway, certainly one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Dean, just.
No, I was just been thinking about something just since the introduction. Obviously, introducing Dean as Jenas' PR advisor. Just like to take things serious for a minute. I just think with Jenas being an ex-Newcastle player, I think it's probably fair to comment on it. He has had a massive PR disaster, and that's not the worst of it, really, is it? But one day when it first came out, he was talking about consulting his lawyers and things like that, and he was angry about it and stuff. And then within 24 hours, he's gone completely the other way, and he's flipped and he's apologised. And he's ashamed of his behaviour and stuff like that, and that's quite a flip, isn't it? I think he's obviously trying to cover it up and trying to get away with stuff. And then the next day, obviously, some evidence has come out about what he's been up to, and he's sort of panicked and had to retract and sort of apologise and what have you. So just sort of the more I've thought about it, like the last few days, it's been, we've had some right little rats playing for us at times, haven't we? And I think I'm pleased that he's been dealt with and he's been sacked by the BBC for what he's done.
Yeah, he was an odd player, wasn't he? Never really settled in Newcastle, and the fans never took to him. And yeah, he's just one of those blokes, I think. I don't think he was particularly respectful of Bobby Robson either, who gave him his first chance. So yeah, let's put him firmly in the bin. Yep. Good shout, Ollie. Definitely worth mentioning. Dean, just moving us forward to Forest on Wednesday, mate. 8 o'clock on Sky. It is, this one. What sort of changes are you expecting? Are you expecting wholesale changes? Or, I know you mentioned Trippier will start. I'd imagine Hall will start and Sandro will come in. Is this an opportunity for Osula? Or like, how far are these changes going to go?
I think we'll dip one foot in. So we'll see some changes, but I don't think we're going to see it to the extent of some of the young players, on the edge of the squad are going to get opportunities. I don't think we'll see that. We may see 2 or 3 of them on the bench, perhaps, and maybe late in the game we might see 1 or 2 young players. But I think largely you'll go with players that he feels can get us through into the next round. And I know we hear it all of the time from managers, whether it's League Cup, FA Cup, they make wholesale changes and they say, I've still picked a team that I think can win. And you're thinking, well, are you really? But I do think we'll do that on Wednesday. I think we'll make some changes, but changes that Eddie Howe still feels comfortable and confident that can get us through into the next round. So as an example, we'll see Willock, and that's an opportunity for him to get more game time, but it's also a player that Eddie Howe trusts. So I think we'll see those types of changes. I think we may see Almiron, certainly if he's going to still be around, and I would expect him to, given that it's Monday now. So those types of changes, I think players will be given an opportunity. I think he'll he'll feel like that the cup stuff's unfinished business. And I'm sure behind closed doors, they've talked about winning a trophy as much as getting into Europe is important for the club. And I have no doubts that Eddie Howe will want to try and get us across the line on that this season. So that's what I think, Stu. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, Tonali will come into that as well.
Yeah. Ollie, so obviously going back to 22-23, disappointing final against Man United. So close but so far. And then, disappointing quarter-final against Chelsea last season where, we feel like we should have done better, albeit for a Trippier mistake. We could have had Middlesbrough in the semis, which would have been an easy pass to the final. We're just building up a bit of momentum in this tournament. The focus should just be getting through this round, right? Like let's put a team out, as Dean mentions there, good enough to put the performance in. But our mind's not being on Spurs at the weekend. I kind of feel like what I don't want to happen is kind of the focus on the performances so far this season that our minds are on Spurs when we want to be getting through in the cups, right? So the focus should be on this cup match.
Definitely, yeah, and I think it will be. I mean, that's how it works, isn't it? From one game to the next, and I think Dean's right about who we're going to see, and I don't think it's going to be wholesale changes. I think Pope will keep his place. Obviously, we've got Dubravka out with a concussion injury, haven't we? We've got Fletcher Demos, who we seem to be looking to get out on loan as well, so we're not wanting him to play for us. John Ruddy, I mean, he was on the bench obviously yesterday, wasn't he? But I think it's going to be, Pope's not quite match sharp. He's had a few months off at the end of last season. So I think giving him more game time will be good for him. I've got a feeling Tonali might start. It's a good opportunity to give him some good minutes. I don't think he'll last the full game, but I think he might start. And then obviously, as Dean says, some of those more fringe players might come in. Miggy might see Osula starting, maybe alongside Isak again. Isak's in a good bit of form in terms of how he's playing. He's looked sharp, but he could do with more minutes. He could do with a goal. But yeah, I think the focus will be entirely on that game. I don't think we'll be thinking too much about Spurs.
Yeah, it's been a difficult place for us down at Forest, although we've managed to win there. We had one here. Forest have had exactly the same start of the season as us, so they've had 4 points with a 1-1 draw against Bournemouth and a 1-0 win against Southampton. That is spooky as fuck, that, Ollie, isn't it?
It is, right? Proper X-Files, isn't it?
Right. Before we go, just want to get some predictions from you both, please. So, Ollie, first, what do you see the score being in goal scorers and that sort of stuff?
I'm going to say 2-1 to Newcastle. I'm going to say Isak, and I'm going to say Harvey Barnes as well.
Good shout. Dean, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm going to ask that we interchange who goes first, because this is 2 weeks in a row that Ollie's, or 2 games in a row, Ollie's took the prediction. To be honest, I do feel, I think with it being the cup fixture, and there seems to be a little bit of an enjoyment bit to the League Cup for us at the moment under Eddie Howe, I do think we can get it done in the 90s. So I don't know if this is allowed, Stu, but I'm going to say 2-1 also to the tune.
That's very much allowed, mate. Who's going to score?
Couldn't even tell you who's going to play, man. I'm going to say, let's just pick a couple of guesses here. I'm going to say Almiron's going to get one. I'd like to see him with a smile on his face again. So, and then, Harvey Barnes as well.
Sweet. I'm going to go 3-0 Newcastle with a Tonali hat-trick. I think I'm going to go emotional. He's going to get out joking. I think we'll get the job done though. I'll say 1-0, and hopefully Isak gets off the mark this season. Although I think he might get some rest. He might be given 60 minutes, given that he's played in every game so far this season, albeit only 2. Thanks very much, gents. We'll leave it there. As ever, you can get us on the socials on X at Strawberry_NUFC. On Instagram, we're at Strawberry_NUFC. Threads is the same, at Strawberry_NUFC. Bluesky, Olly, do your bit.
It's at NUFC. No, it's not. It's at Strawberry NUFC. No underscore.
That's it. And then you can get us on the an email if you'd like to get involved, which is strawberrycornerpod@gmail.com. We're thinking about running a pin badge competition, the Corinthian pin badges that we ran with HFR. So keep your eyes peeled on the socials for that. That'll be about sharing content and helping us get forward with Strawberry Corner. So keep your eyes peeled. And one, just to leave you with some sad news, Sven-Göran Eriksson's passed. Just a quick word on him. I thought he was a bit of a legend at Lazio. A big manager in the game who will leave a big footprint, yeah?
Absolutely, aye. I mean, really, really good coach everywhere he's been, hasn't he? He's done a really good job. Had a difficult time with England, but yeah, just really sad news. Aye. Not unexpected, but really sad anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's leave it there until the next time. Away the lads.